Interviews are at the heart of every investigation. Learn how to ask the right questions, avoid bias, and get to the truth without derailing the process.
Welcome to the HR Investigations Podcast, exploring the issues, challenges, strategies, and solutions. Sponsored by RPCHR and hosted by Natalie Ivy, an HR consultant, licensed PI, and author of the best-selling book, How to Conduct Internal Investigations, a practical guide for human resource professionals. And now, here's Natalie.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to the HR Investigations Podcast. I'm Natalie Ivy, your host, and so happy to have you with me today. And today, we've got an important episode. So we're going to talk today about investigative interviews, and that means the complainants, the witnesses, and also the subjects, those who are accused of wrongdoing. Well, why is this an important topic? Well, if you've been in HR, employee relations, or ethics, you know that interviews are really at the heart of every investigation that you do. And we're going to explore today how to ask the right questions, avoid bias, and really get to the truth without derailing the process. Okay. Now, whether you're speaking with the complainants, your witnesses, or the subjects, interviews are where the facts are going to come to light, but they can also really go off track very quickly if you don't structure them properly. I'm going to share with you some tips and techniques to really help you get some accurate and unbiased information every time. Well, let's talk about the beginning. A strong interview is going to begin with a plan, and I've talked about this numerous times, and I even used an example in one of my episodes a while back because I'm a scuba diver, and I learned years ago if you're going to plan for a dive, you better plan. You can't just throw the tanks on and, jump in 120 feet of water and just sort of go for it. That's a fast track to you maybe even losing your life. So you plan your dive, you dive your plan. So with investigative work, you plan your investigation and then you work your investigation plan. You plan your interview, your investigative interview with your questions, and then you execute that interview using the questions that you planned, okay? So plan your dive your plan your investigation, work your investigation. So a strong interview begins with some key principles, and that means you want to start broad and then narrow in, and your questions need to be mostly open-ended. Let the interviewee tell their story and then really drill down on the specifics. And then your interviews are going to also really be a little bit different depending on who you're speaking with. Obviously, a complainant, you're going to have a lot more back and forth and a lot more detail. Witnesses, some of them could be very quick interviews, some could be very, very lengthy. But the subject is also going to require certainly a very different approach, particularly when you're going to be carrying forward questions that you are really trying to have as corroborating questions. You're really trying to sync up with a subject. Well, does it line up with maybe what another witness said that is maybe supporting the fact that they really are telling the truth and maybe the complainant came forward in bad faith or vice versa? You definitely want at the beginning of the interview to set expectations, and that means clarifying your role, your responsibilities, the purpose of the interview, and also discuss your confidentiality parameters. Now, also a little caveat with that. It's really important, and I talk about it in my workshops, that we've got to really tread lightly around guaranteeing confidentiality. You can't really cut deals that you're not going to be able to keep. You can't guarantee 100% confidentiality. It's just not possible. So you're going to have to be careful, but also you have to be very careful in really putting like a gag order, if you will, on your interviewee. In certain circumstances, yes, you might really want to have a non-disclosure agreement, but legal is going to have to decide that. It's very tricky today, and in just a short podcast, I really can't get into it. It's a little bit more lengthy, and these are the things that I talk about in my education programs, my continuing education, especially those of you who have a union shop environment. That's kind of a little bit more than what we can cover today. But nevertheless, you want to set expectations. Also, open-ended questions. Encourage what I call storytelling. Here's a way that you might phrase it. Complainant, can you walk me through exactly what happened that day? Or witness, talk to me specifically about when you arrived in the middle of the office during that incident. Walk me through what happened. Walk me through your observations. Tell me more about what you heard. Tell me more about what you saw. See? And you don't want to ask leading questions. You don't want to say anything that could, suggest answers or imply judgment. So instead of asking something like, well, did they yell at you? Ask, what exactly was said? Okay. Or you wouldn't say, like if you have a complainant alleging harassment and maybe it's something, kind of pretty egregious what they're alleging. And you maybe frown and say, wow, didn't that make you feel uncomfortable? No. Okay. Don't plant the seed with the complainant that made the individual uncomfortable. You're imprinting your feelings on the matter, and that is injecting bias. You don't do that. Let silence work for you. After a question, pause. Silence really needs to be something you get comfortable with. It makes sometimes professionals uncomfortable, but you have to get comfortable with it. And often people are going to fill the silence with additional details, and that's obviously your role here is to get the information. For witnesses, you also want to ask them specifically what they observed and what they heard, as I said a moment ago, not what they think. Okay, you ask, what did you see or hear? You wouldn't say something like, well, wow, did you think that was harassment? Did you think she was harassing her? No, you don't go there. You just ask, what did you see or what did you hear? Okay. And also, it's important that you have a position on the interview where you're not really assuming any sort of guilt or innocence. You stay in that neutral zone. But certain cues are going to help with credibility assessments. And, well, what are you looking for? You're looking for consistency across multiple interviews, maybe previous statements. You're looking for alignment of what is being said with documented evidence. Like if you've got emails or text messages, you've been able to look at also time and attendance records or calendars, and certain things are going to line up. The level of detail provided, you're not prompting it, but you're getting it. That can help you. And also observing body language, but without over-interpreting it. You really want to focus on the verbal content, and that means it's more of what people say, what they don't say. The inflection, tone, cadence of the voice, things like that are going to be very important. And also a little caveat with body language. You got to be really careful as HR professionals of just drawing what I call straight line conclusions, that just because someone maybe rubbed their right earlobe and they seemed a little fidgety, that means that they're really anxious, nervous, and must be lying. Okay, you can't draw that kind of straight line conclusion. And also there are cultural nuances, and people who are not necessarily from the United States, they may have been here even a little while, but culturally they may have a very different orientation. Sometimes there are gestures or phrases or like even the eye contact that can vary depending on where someone's national origin is. Also sometimes even religious faith. So you can't say, oh, well, this person didn't look me in the eye, so I know they were dishonest. That is really looking at the situation through very much a kind of a Western U.S. kind of lens. You can't really draw, again, that straight line conclusion. All right, so when it comes to the interview process, you want to take, of course, detailed factual notes, and you record verbatim quotes. And then you're focusing on the who, what, where, when, why, how, and also timestamps for clarity. And also make sure that your documentation is objective. You're not going to be inserting your opinions or your assumptions. Okay. Now, for complainants, if you were to think about key questions that you really need to ask, it's going to be the who, what, where, when, why, how. Like, can you please describe for me what happened and give me some dates, times, and specific details? Maybe the specific location where this incident took place. And then also you could ask in a closed-ended question that would be good is, can you tell me, is there any documentation related to this? Can you provide me with any other information that could shed further light on what you've shared with me? Something like that. For an accused, you could use a question such as, can you walk me through your perspective on this situation? Can you tell me if there were any communications or instructions that might clarify what happened? Can you tell me about any other incidents, maybe the same or similar, that have occurred before with this particular employee? Things like that. Then with witnesses, you can ask questions like, what did you observe firsthand? When did this happen? Specifically, give me the date and time. And then a closed-ended question. Did anyone else witness the event? If so, who? Who else may have been around at the time? So identifying who was there, but also who may have been around. And then additionally ask them, can you tell me any other documentation? Or can you provide any other evidence that supports your statement if they say that they witnessed something? What else would you suggest we look at? Okay. Who else do you recommend we talk with? And again, remain neutral, and you're not injecting the bias or assumptions into your questions. All right, in closing, effective interviews are really the backbone of credible investigations, and particularly when you're working in HR or employee relations and you're conducting equal employment opportunity investigations. A huge part of that is the investigative interview. So by structuring your interviews and asking more open-ended, avoiding bias, and then, of course, your note-taking during the interview, documenting thoroughly, you're definitely going to uncover the facts without really derailing the process. And just keep in mind, your job is to gather information, not to prove a point. So neutrality, patience, and structure are your strongest tools. And also, I wanted to mention on the subject of investigative interviewing, I have coming up my next 2-day How to Conduct Internal Investigations. It's a certification workshop. It is 10 HRCI and SHRM credit hours. It is an approved SHRM and HRCI program. And you also are going to learn through watching some video interaction where you see me in action with an actor, of course, but in action using what is a proprietary technique for my company, RPC Human Resources, called the bullseye technique. And you see me in action working with a complainant and also a subject in a practice investigation where you can really learn a lot more than what I can cover in just a very brief podcast. So if you want more information on that, the details are in the show notes. And also, if you register during the early bird period, you do get some pretty cool perks with that. You get $100 off registration. You get also an author-signed copy of my book, How to Conduct Internal Investigations. And then that comes with a very comprehensive supplemental toolkit where you get interview templates. So that'll allow you to have an interview template for your complainant, your witness, your subject. And then also you've got sample policy, sample documentation, and a whole bunch of other stuff, quizzes. And then you'll get a certified HR investigator digital badge you can use for your socials, and also an RPC HR swag bag. It's a cool canvas tote bag with some other cool stuff. So anyway, I would love to have you join me and help you in leveling up your skills in conducting investigative interviews. And also, for groups, if you are 3 or more, I do offer a 10% discount if you all come together. And if you need more information on that, you can certainly just reach out to us. Okay, gang, that is it for today's episode. I hope that I've provided you with some valuable tips on interviewing. And always remember, the best investigation is the one you don't have to do. See ya.
Thanks for joining us today on the HR Investigations Podcast. Be sure to subscribe, like, and share the show with any colleagues who will benefit from our strategies and solutions. For free bonus resources, simply visit hr-investigations.com. And remember, if you'd like some help with improving your investigative skills, or if your organization is in need of an external investigator to help with a case, please get in touch with us. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.